Realtors, do you want to make more money with less effort? Today, what I'm going to share with you is how to maximize the most important resources you have, your time, your energy, and your attention, so that you can get a great return on all three to ensure that you build a great real estate sales business with duplicatable and repeatable business without having to spin your wheels and waste a lot of your resources. And so the main way that you're going to do that is better conversations. And I'm going to give you a 5-part conversation framework today that you will use on every conversation. I want you to think in structure. Unfortunately, most real estate agents and really salespeople are winging it, right? They don't have a plan for how they're going to organize a conversation, so they don't come across as professional as they possibly can be, or they don't have all the information, and they end up with incomplete information and then a unsuccessful transaction. And I don't want that to happen to you. That's why I shoot this content. That's why I provide this video information for you. So to help you live a better quality of life, have a better business, and ultimately achieve the goals and dreams that you have for yourself. So let's get into the 5-part framework of the conversation to help you maximize time, energy, and attention to build a better business. Step 1 is relationship. Okay, so you're either going to establish or define the relationship for the person you're talking to, or in some cases, maybe it's your sphere of influence you haven't talked to in a while, reopen, reestablish, or redefine the terms of the relationship. How do you relate to each other, right? If you're at an open house, how you relate to each other is you're both there. You're there working, they're there to come and check out the house, and now you have some relatability so that you can start to the second step, which is connection. Build a connection. The way you connect is commonality, familiarity. Back to building relationships or opening the relationships. You may have heard Glenn Ross has a great line, the ABC of sales, always be closing. I think it's the ABOC of sales, always be opening and closing relationships, okay? Then we move to connection. Connection is what do we have in common? And you can ask great questions. The way to ask great questions when you're in a situation is to use also a methodology. I call it the frog method for asking questions. You can do this at networking events. You can do this in open houses. You can do this when you're first meeting people. It's great for just socializing in general. I find that people struggle in networking or social events if they're not naturally outgoing people, and it's because they think they need to be interesting, and really what you need to be is interested, okay? Be interested rather than interesting. And the way you demonstrate interest in other people is you ask them questions. So the method for asking questions is called the frog method, and it's a sequence. Family is F. You ask about their family. R is recreation. What do you do for fun? O, occupation. What do you do for work? G, goals. What are your aspirations? What are your dreams? You might have heard this also presented as the Ford method. The D in Ford would be dreams. So same thing as G, goals, and frog. Frog is something I remember. But anyway, you got to have a structure for asking questions, and that's how you further establish relationship and further build connection. Once you've done that, now you've got the grounds for the possibility and the opportunity to get into some business, because people do business with people that they like, people where the tension is low, the trust is high, and the way you do that is relating and connecting. The third part of the conversation structure is qualify. Now, qualify has 6 steps in the qualifying process. I'm going to take you through each step now, because if you miss one of these steps, or you do them out of sequence, or you don't do them at all, the possibility is that you're going to be working with a suspect rather than a prospect. And suspects are going to run you around, they're going to waste your time, energy, and attention, and you're not going to have anything to show for it, and you're going to want to quit and be like, this sucks, I hate it. Right? But if you work with bona fide prospects that have been qualified, now you've got a pipeline. Now you've got real verifiable people who are going to convert into customers, and then those customers are going to cash paychecks, then they're going to refer other people, and now you start building a great business. Okay, qualify. First part of qualify is motivation. So motivation is, what is the intention behind what's prompting you to be in the market to buy a house, or what's prompting you to want to sell your house and move on with your life? And so motivation has 3 categories, both for buyers and for sellers. Motivation categories for buyers and sellers both have the same number one category, which is life event. So what is a life event, right? It's things that happen in our lives that prompt us to move. The positive ones are, get married, got a new job, growing family, relocating, all good things that make people happy and reasons why people would want to go through moving and buying and selling a home. On the negative side, right? Death, divorce, can't pay my bills, lost my job, those kinds of things, of course, also prompt people to get into the market to sell a house, as an example. Okay. The second category of motivation for a buyer is a renter that wants to become an owner. You know that every 12 months approximately, you're going to have a need to make a decision. My leases keep coming up. Am I going to stay in the place I'm living? Am I going to go to a new place? Am I going to buy something? Okay. Third category of motivation for a buyer is an investor. Landlords who buy for rental income or rehabbers who buy for fix, flip, and sell profit. And I don't love that category of motivation. Not saying there's anything wrong with investors. I am an investor. I've worked with investors, but their level of motivation is not as strong as someone who's going through a divorce, right? You talk to somebody who's going through a divorce and it's hot and it's contentious, right? They're like, get me out of here. Whereas an investor is going to say, that probably doesn't quite meet my criteria. Let's drop the contract on that one. I couldn't really get it for the price that I want. Meanwhile, offers and spinning your wheels versus a higher caliber of motivation. On the seller side, life event we talked about. Then you got sellers who need to cash out. I've got equity buildup. Maybe I'm a rehabber and I need to keep my money moving. And then the third category is a fishing trip, which is never what you want to go on as a listing agent. Looks like this. Yeah, let's throw it out there and see if anything bites. Meaning, let's list the property in a way that see if we can generate some interest in the market. And, if somebody bites, maybe we'll reel them in or not. Problem is you're the bait, and that's not a good place to be. So my advice is go with the highest caliber of motivation scale to ensure that you have higher probability of paychecks. We work on contingency. We only get paid when the deal closes. I know you know this. And so every opportunity also has an opportunity cost. And if you work with the wrong prospect or suspect in this case, you're not going to get that paycheck. You're going to get frustrated and waste your time, energy, and attention. I don't want you to do that. All right, second in the qualifying sequence is motivation scale. And you'd ask it like this. So, Mr. Seller, Mr. Buyer, I understand you are prompted to be in the market for this reason. Let me ask you, how important is this for you to make happen? Like on a scale of 1 to 10. For me, it's a simple question to ask, and I like to measure everything because we work on contingency. I want to know what I should be putting my time and energy and attention into, and I can only know that if I ask the right question about motivation scale. And for me, when I was an active real estate agent or I coach, hundreds of agents, I've spoken and coached into thousands of agents over the years. As I run my brokerage, I'm always teaching my agents that you need to work with buyers and sellers that have high motivation scale, 8, 9, 10 plus, right? Can't go higher than 10 out of 10, but you get the point. Right? You want to work with high scale. Now, not everybody will tell you the truth, but at least you asked the question, right? At least you weren't going into it in a naive way to think, oh yeah, they said they wanted to do it, so they must really want to do it. You and I both know there's a lot of tire kickers out there. There's a lot of sellers who say they want to sell, but when it's time to meet the market, they just don't do it, right? And now you're stuck with a listing that hasn't sold, and you're like, man, that was a big waste of my time, energy, and attention. I'm not going to do that again. Okay, third question in the qualifying sequence is by when? Not what's your time frame. That's the wrong question. The best question is by when? By when, Mr. Seller, do you no longer want to own this house? By when, Ms. Buyer, do you want to own this new house? And the reason that's the right question is because now you're going to work backwards from that date. We both know that there is going to be, for example, a closing window, 30 to 45 to 60 days from contract to close. Fine. Well, we also got to, if we're a listing agent, we got to get the house ready for the market. And then we got to look at how long are comps on for that house staying on the market before they go under contract and then get to closing. And so we got to work backwards from there because we got to prepare ourselves for when we're actually going to go to the market. If it's a buyer, okay, we got to set the search. We got to show properties. Or how long do we want to be searching? Is the property you're looking for available in your marketplace today at the price and terms you're looking for? Maybe it is, maybe it's not, maybe we need a long window of time, but all of that is determined based on the buy when they either want to own or no longer want to own that property. Fourth question, for a buyer, how are you going to pay? It's not what's your budget. That's often the wrong question that I hear people asking. Not what's your budget, but how are you going to pay? For a buyer, of course, there's only two ways to pay. You're getting mortgage financing or you're paying all cash, no mortgage financing. Okay, cool. That leads you to the next question, which is for financing, have you been approved by a lender? Are you working with a lender? Do you have a lender that you would want me to refer you to, for example, if you don't have one? Or if you are paying cash, great. Would you be able to produce evidence of or proof of funds so that when we do get to the time where we need to make an offer, of course, the seller is going to want to see that you have the capacity to buy the home at the price and terms under which we made the offer and go under contract, and you have to demonstrate evidence. So do you have that evidence? Is that something you can provide to me? And what you're doing with these questions is you're basically qualifying people to determine, do you have a real prospect for your business? Okay, and if they can't jump through your hoops and they don't give you the answers that you need so that you can know if you've got a verifiable prospect in your business, that's an indication that it might not be worth your time, energy, and attention. Okay, for a seller, not how are you going to pay, but what is your expected sale price in the marketplace today? Now you know if you have a seller that is actually committed to selling their property inside of the market that we have. Are they committed to meeting the market for where the market is today, or do they have some pricing expectation that is out of alignment with the marketplace today? And now you know, do I have a real prospective seller, a verifiable prospective seller, or do I have a fishing trip? Someone wants to use me as the bait and cast me out, see if we can get any nibbles. Okay, next question, 5, is are you working with or talking to another realtor? Now, it's fine if they are, unless, of course, they've already signed a listing agreement or a buyer broker agreement. And then, of course, you're not working with them because you can't give advice or guidance to someone who's already signed an agreement with another agent. At least that's how it works here in my state. But if they've not signed anything yet, that's how you would determine if, in fact, you're going to go forward with your own form of signed agreement, buyer broker or listing agreement. So are you working with another agent? Have you talked to another agent? No, I have not. Wonderful. And that's where you would set the stage for, well, what it's like to work with me is, and then you get to the stage of talking through your buyer broker agreement, talking through your listing agreement, negotiating the elements of those agreements. I'm not going to give you the training on that. I've done that in other videos. In particular, Charging What You're Worth is a great video I encourage you to watch. I'll leave it on the end card when we get to the video or the end of the video. But are you working with another agent? If you are, I respect it. And I don't want to step on anybody's toes unless you feel like that agent is not the right fit for you, in which case I'd be thrilled to work with you now that you've already answered all of my qualifying questions and it seems like you might be a legitimate prospect for my business. Great. And then we do what every agent tends to do in the beginning of the qualifying conversation, but we do it at the end is we get the criteria, right? If you're a buyer, what's the criteria? Location, size, type of property, etc. Or if you're a seller, it's let me come on over to your house and let me look at the house. Let's run the comps. Let's get an idea of what the days on market are going to look like based on your condition, etc. Okay, that is the qualifying process. And it's a very detailed process. And it is the absolute linchpin to your success. I find so many agents just either underqualify or don't qualify at all because they're so eager to work with a prospect, maybe at least earlier on in your business. Once you get to latter stages of your business and you've been run around a bit, you don't do that so much anymore. But even so, even my most experienced agents, man, I'm still helping them go through that and reminding them of going through that process with every prospect on their pipeline. And oftentimes what happens, they realize, nah, it's not a real prospect. They said the one thing, but now they're behaving in another way, and I can see the truth based on their behavior. Don't forget, guys, behavior is language. You got to pay attention to what people do, not to what people say, okay? Because that's really their truth. All right, we've gotten through qualifying. So step 4, back on the 5-step conversation framework, now that we're out of step 3, qualify. Of course, that had multiple steps in it. On to step 4 is we make a game plan. Okay, great, Mr. Prospect. Now that we understand all of the criteria, now that we understand all of the qualification aspects as to what we're doing here, and we know the motivation is sound, and we're allocating our time, energy, and attention properly, here's the plan. I'm going to set the search and I'm going to send you the properties and you're going to select the properties and we're going to go look at properties, yada, yada, right? Or the seller, here's the plan. I'm going to come over to your house next Tuesday at 5 p.m. or at 6 p.m. better, or should we do Wednesday at that time? We'll look at the house, we'll talk about a strategy, and away we go. Make the plan. And once we have those steps in place, we know what it looks like. And then number 5, this is the most important part that we ensure happens to make sure we don't spin on wheels and wasting our time. Like I've just given you a conversation framework. It's taken me, I don't know, 10 minutes to even shoot this so far. And so many agents leave this next step on the table. This is the bonus step that's going to really ensure your success. And that is you close. Remember the ABCs of sales, you close for the next step. Don't ever leave a conversation without closing for the next step. Here's what that looks like. All right, now that we made the game plan, now that we have all the details ironed out, let's schedule our next conversation. Let's schedule our next meeting. Let's schedule our next interaction. Okay, I send you the properties. It'll be 24 hours, that you'll get them in the next 24 hours, or maybe by 5 o'clock business today. How much time do you need to look at those properties before you'll be ready to have a conversation? Okay, 24 hours, 48 hours, cool. So is daytime, evening, or weekend better for you for us to follow up next? See, what you're doing here is you're in control of your schedule. I hear too many people say this. All right, well, let me know. And let's talk next week. Right? Those are way too open-ended when it comes to you managing your business on a schedule with clear closing steps for what happens next. Instead, it needs to look like, okay, I'm going to call you by the end of this week. Is daytime, evening, or on the weekend better for you? Oh, I don't know. How about the weekend? Okay, cool. Is Saturday or Sunday better? It's Saturday. So what I'm doing is I'm giving them choices within my available time. Here's the worst thing you can do. What's good for you? Terrible plan, right? What's good for your schedule? When would you like me to call? How about, Saturday night at 11 p.m.? I know that's a ridiculous example, but you get my point. You're now turning control over your schedule, over to your customers, and you don't even know if they're for real yet. You're just in the beginning stages, okay? Instead, give them options. Daytime, evening, or weekend. Weekend, great. Saturday or Sunday, great. Sunday, is 10 a.m. or noon better? Right? You give them options based on your schedule availability. Now you're in control of your schedule. This is game changing, guys, because when you take control of your schedule and when you lead, see, this is all about leadership. When you lead your prospect, they'll follow you. When you lead your prospect, your probability of a paycheck goes way up. And when you know the qualifying questions, the answers to the qualifying questions, motivation scale, by when, etc., what happens is that as things shift around and change around, as they often do with human beings, you can always bring them back to the structure of what you created together. I promise you that if you follow this conversation structure, 5 steps, relationship, connection, qualify, game plan, next step. If you follow that structure in every conversation, I'm not talking every now and again, I'm not talking with just new people, I'm talking about with everybody, right? It doesn't even have to be a transactional conversation. It can just be a follow-up care call to your database. Relationship, connection, qualify, great questions, whatever it is you want to talk about. Here's the game plan. Here's the next step. I promise you that this is going to be game changing for you, and you're going to start maximizing your return on your time, on your energy, and on your attention so that you can do more deals and live a better quality of life. All right, keep watching. I'm going to keep sharing great content for you.